Hey guys, Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you my first impressions plus on-feet video of the brand new Adidas Messi 15.2. Now as you guys can see, it does come in a Messi variation box, but it's not quite the same in terms of coloring and details that you're going to find with the top-end Messi 15.1 box. It still has the kind of zigzag kind of cracked opening, which is kind of cool. Open it up and you can see that it does say built to win there in gray. Remove the second lid and that's going to expose the shoes themselves. And as you can see inside the box, all you get are the shoes. They do not come with any extras. So let me get these guys out of the box really quickly and we'll take a closer look at the first takedown model in the new Messi 15.1 lineup, the Messi 15.2. Now this being the first takedown model has a retail price of $110 US, which is exactly half the price of the top end Messi 15.1. So for half the price, are you getting a shoe that's half as good? Are you getting a shoe that's equally as good? How's the quality? That's all questions that are going to be answered in today's video. So if you're interested in learning more about the new Messi 15.2, please stick around and watch the entire video. If you guys are interested in a pair of these for yourself, be sure to check out the review page on my website. That'll be the very first link down below in the description of this video. On that page, you will find Buy It Now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you'll be able to pick these guys up below their normal $110 retail price. So again, if you're interested in a pair, first link down below, go ahead and check it out. And with that being said, let's get right into the review. So what's on offer when it comes to performance with the Messi 15.2? Now being that it's a takedown model, obviously it's not going to have all the same premium elements that you're going to find from the .1, the top end shoe in the line. With that being said, this is still a $110 soccer cleat, which is by no means cheap. So you expect a certain quality standard. And I think for the most part, Adidas has given it to us with the Messi 15.2. There's not a lot to be mad about with this particular model. Now, of course, like the top end .1 model, it does feature a synthetic upper and it's got pretty much the same cutoff points as well. So the main kind of synthetic material on the shoe spans from this seam right here on the lateral side, goes all the way through the midfoot, forefoot, toe box area, and then cuts off at the exact same point here on the medial side. Now the synthetic material is not Messi touch like what you're going to find on the top end model that I have right here. So you can see side by side, even from a distance, they're a little bit different from each other. The Messi touch synthetic has some good thickness to it, and it of course has this kind of signature dimpling. Looks a lot like what you found on the Mercurial Vapor 9 with their speed control technology, but ultimately it is a little bit different. It's just texture for the sake of texture, if I'm completely honest. And then of course you do have the artificial leather grain finish on top. It's thin, it's soft, it's flexible, but at the same time it does have a very slight thickness and a very slight padded sensation to it that I actually quite like. A little bit thicker than the F50, a little bit more leather-like in terms of its quality when it comes to touch, but definitely not what I would consider to be the best of the best in terms of getting a barefoot feel. It's kind of in between a leather and synthetic shoe. That's kind of how I would describe it. Now with the synthetic upper on the Messi 15.2, I would argue that this is actually a little bit thinner. It's pretty soft, it's pretty flexible. Again, the quality standard definitely seems to be there. It's on par with other shoes in this price range, although I would say you do have better options in the price range in shoes like the Ace 15.2. I think that has a slightly nicer quality synthetic upper, as well as the Nike Mercurial Veloce 2, which has a very premium feeling synthetic upper if you're looking for something thin. You can see on the surface of the upper, you're going to find some texturing, definitely not to the same extreme as the Messi 15.1. It's more of an artificial kind of texture that's very, very fine. You're not really going to notice it too much when you're actually making contact with the ball. And it doesn't have the same artificial leather grain finish either. It's got more of a shiny kind of slightly kind of, I don't even know how you would describe it, like a very, very fine texturing that you can definitely see, but again, you're not really going to feel too much when making contact with the ball. It does have a fairly chunky liner as well, but you also have that same liner on the Messi 15.1, so I can't complain about that too much. The tongue is made from kind of a foam base. You can see the little cutout here in the middle that exposes that little bit of foam. That, in my opinion, is kind of cheap. I wish it was the same synthetic as the front portion of the shoe, but unfortunately it's not. Again, not a major downside, but definitely something worth mentioning. Laces run through the middle of the shoe. That's unchanged from the top end Messi 15.1. And then when you get here to the back, this is where there are some significant differences in comparison to that top end model. This is still technically a Messi frame, but as you guys can see, especially when I put the Messi 15.1 on screen, it's completely different. Now the Messi frame on the 15.1 is essentially this kind of slightly stretchy rubber cage that's attached to the surface of the upper. It's independent here, works directly with the lacing system, and the idea is that when you pull the laces tight, this cage is going to help support this rear portion of the shoe. When you actually wear it, it does do that. If you pull the laces tight, you do get some extra structure from this rear portion of the shoe. Is it super noticeable? Not really. And really my complaint, even in my initial impressions of the shoe and after wearing them, is that this cage, while it does do what it's supposed to do, I suppose, is a little bit more bulky than it needs to be. This fused on cage, while it might not look as elaborate, is going to serve the exact same purpose and going to be just as effective. The only thing that you're really going to miss out on in comparison to the Messi 15.1 is one, this is not going to be as bulky, which you could view as a positive thing, and two, you're not going to get any grip from this particular element just because it's a fused on smooth synthetic, whereas this is made from a rubber material. So anytime the ball makes contact with this area of the foot, either on the lateral or medial side, you are getting a lot of extra grip on the ball, kind of like a rubber element. So that could be viewed again as a very positive thing with the Messi 15.1 versus the 15.2, but I guess it's more a matter of what you prefer or what your budget allows for. You're not going to have any issues with either the 15.1 or the 15.2, but in all honesty, I really feel like this particular element could have been featured on the 15.1 and it may have been better off for it, but that's just my opinion. Leave your opinions down below in the comment section. Now, moving on to the heel area of the shoe, you're going to find an internal plastic heel counter. It has pretty much the same lining material you're going to find on the 15.1 as well. It's a synthetic suede with this little graphic printed on top. The insole is fully removable and again the same as the top end 15.1, except it does say Messi 15.2. Mesh liner on top and a single layer of foam, nothing too far off from the comfort insole that used to be found in the F50 Adidas line. And then moving on to the outsole, this has what they call their Messi Gamba Tracks stud pattern that initially looks similar to what you're going to find on that top end 0.1 model. You're going to notice that the 0.1 model, you have a base plastic, kind of a plastic base inside the shoe that's covered up with the upper material on the bottom, and then you have all the little cutouts in the actual outsole that holds the studs. On the Messi 15.2, you don't have that. This is essentially one piece, and it's just two different colors that make it look like there's actual cutouts, but this yellow stuff is actually just hard plastic. So it's a solid sole plate with coloring that makes it look like it actually has cutouts, when in reality it doesn't. Does this add some weight? Potentially. We're gonna find that out a little bit later in the video. But other than that, the stud pattern is exactly the same. This is, of course, a firm ground AG stud pattern from Adidas. You're going to find that on all of their new models. And in regards to how this stud pattern actually performs on artificial grass, it's definitely more of an FG stud pattern. It's very much based on what we used to see on the 2014 F50 Adizero, especially with the layout of the studs and even the shape. They're all triangular in shape, although a little bit smaller than what we saw on the 2014 F50, more like the Crazy Light model, I would say. And you can see the very two front studs are rounded off as opposed to being triangular. That's the main difference. Same thing with the two studs at the very back. They start off as triangles, but end up as a conical stud. They're not super long, so on artificial grass, you're not gonna have too many issues with the studs kind of creating stud pressure because of their length. But again, it does have somewhat of a kind of clinginess to it. It feels like a firm ground stud pattern in my opinion. And on firm natural grass, it performs really, really well. You get good bite, good traction, pretty much what you would expect from a pair of F50s, but in this case, it is of course the Messi line. But on actual artificial grass, like I said, it definitely does feel and perform more like that of a firm ground stud pattern. So that's definitely worth considering if you are buying these to use on artificial grass. They do feel more like firm ground shoes in my opinion. So that's pretty much it in terms of what you're getting from a tech spec standpoint. It's a pretty decent shoe. The quality is definitely there. There's not too much to complain about. The synthetic's not as nice. The Messi cage could be viewed as a positive or negative thing depending on what your preferences are. Not crazy about the tongue. Sole plated definitely isn't as premium, but for the most part, you're getting many of the same elements that you will find on the Messi 15.1, which is a very positive thing for any takedown model. In terms of weight, I thought we'd compare the Messi 15.1 to the Messi 15.2 to see if there's any significant difference. So I'm going to weigh both shoes for you today using the scale in real time. Keep in mind these are both the exact same size 9 US, so this is a very fair comparison. We'll start off with the Messi 15.1, throw it on the scale, and you can see that they weigh in at 7.9 ounces, the equivalent of 224 grams. So they're not quite as light as the F50 Adi Zeros, which is kind of what this shoe is based on, but they're still light enough and provide a surprisingly solid feel on feet. So remember those numbers, 7.9 ounces, change the scale back, and we'll throw on the Messi 15.2, and you can see that they weigh in at 9 ounces, so essentially 2 ounces more, the equivalent of 256 grams. At 9 ounces, they do feel noticeably heavier both in hand as well as on feet, and in terms of where all that extra weight is, when you hold it in your hand, you can definitely feel that weight in the sole plate. So again, despite it looking very similar to that of the Messi 15.1 sole plate, it definitely isn't as lightweight in terms of its feel and construction. So if you're looking for a lightweight feel from your thin synthetic soccer shoes and you are on a budget, the Messi 15.1 probably isn't the best option for you. You'd most likely be better off with something like the Nike Mercurial Veloce 2, which is going to be significantly lighter in comparison. Aesthetically, I'm not a huge fan of the new Messi 15.1 line in general. This launch color features this kind of light blue that they call matte ice metallic, which is just really unusual. This particular shoe, as you can see, does have a fairly shiny finish to it, and I will say that I'm not crazy about the finish of the synthetic on the 15.2 at all. It just looks a little bit cheap in my opinion, especially when compared to that top end 15.1. It of course does have the Messi cage that's fused on that I think looks pretty sharp, and because it is fused on as opposed to being thicker rubber like the 15.1, I will say that these have a slightly slimmer profile to them in comparison to that top end model, which you could view as a positive thing. In terms of graphics and logos, you're going to find that the right shoe features the Messi logo on the tongue, whereas the left shoe has the Adidas branding. And then of course, the heels are mismatched as well. Right shoe has the Adidas logo, left shoe has the Messi logo in pretty much like a dark blue and yellow outline, which I think is kind of a cool accent color with the light blue. I like the bright yellow. And then of course, the sole plate is a combination of black and yellow as well. So overall, not the best looking shoe in my opinion, but of course everybody has their own opinion. If you'd like to share yours, leave it down below in the comment section. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on how these things look. And with that being said, let's move on to the on-feet portion of the video so we can get a better idea as to how these shoes fit and of course what the sizing is like. All right, so here is a look at the Messi 15.2s on feet. On my left foot, I have the stock blue laces that come with the shoes, and on my right foot, I have a pair of Caution SR4U replacement laces. If you're interested in a pair of SR4U laces for yourself, be sure to check out the website www.sr4ulaces.com. You find a direct link to that website down below in the description of this video. Now, in terms of how these things fit and feel on feet, if I'm honest, they feel very similar to the top end 15.1. The biggest two differences that you'll notice is that the upper is a little bit thinner, so for that reason the shoe feels a little bit less bulky. And of course, the Messi frame, which is a lot less significant on the 0.2 model in comparison to the 0.1, again, just feels less bulky and less clunky on your feet. So in terms of just the on-foot feel, I would argue that the 15.2 feels a little bit better than the 15.1. That's not to say that the shoe itself is better, but I kind of like the thinner, more low-profile sensation that you get when these things are on your feet in comparison to the 0.1, if that makes any sense. Other than that, they feel pretty good. They're comfortable shoes. Obviously, it's a tighter fit. It's got a synthetic material that's fairly flexible from right out of the box, no major discomfort, my heel's not slipping, and again, I just like how they feel in general, no major complaints there whatsoever. In regards to width, very similar again to the 0.1 model. They're not particularly wide, it definitely does have a tighter fit, so if you do have really wide feet, probably not the best option for you. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, although I do think that this synthetic material will stretch a little bit after some wear time, but again, not necessarily that much, so if you do have wide feet, probably best to stay away. And in regards to sizing, I'm wearing my usual size 9 US here, and the fit and the length is absolutely perfect. So if you are looking to order a pair of these for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. Alright guys, that's it for my first impressions of the Adidas Messi 15.2. Look out for more coverage on this shoe as well as the rest of the Messi lineup in the very near future. In the meantime, if you guys are interested in a pair of these for yourself, be sure to check out the review page on my website. That'll be the very first link down below in the description of this video. On that page, you will find high quality images of this exact shoe that give you a better idea as to how they actually do look in person, as well as buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you'll be able to pick these guys up below their normal $110 retail price. So again, if you're interested in a pair, first link down below, go ahead and check it out. If you have any questions at all regarding the Messi 15.2, leave them down below in the comment section. I definitely will get an answer out to you. If you enjoyed today's video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, thanks for watching.